Greetings, one and all, and welcome to Seven Kinds of Mischief. I'm your host, Stone Loki, and with me today, of course, is the one, the only, my co-conspirator, the Doctor of Disaster and Destruction, Adega Outlaw.
You better believe it.
It's longer and longer every time we do it.
Good evening.
Welcome back. Welcome back, brother.
Hey, for those of you who don't know, and you'll obviously be able to hear it with my voice, Loki covered for me for last week. He probably would have let me off this week too, but I'm just going to be honest with you. Cancer's acting up, and with that, it affects my bone marrow, which affects part of the immune system. And so I also have a pretty ugly cold. And it's not exactly something that's you can take lightly in my condition. But you guys are more important than how I feel. So we're here to have some fun. And he did cover for me, and I greatly appreciate everything that he does. And you said some kind words about me this week, and I really, really appreciate that too.
Well, brother, you rock, man. You know, we talk about people being creators, and we talk about supporting other creators. And you've been here since the very beginning. And instead of being like, oh, well, we need to save this, or you've trailblazed your own mythos and your own universe, and it's a kick-ass universe.
We can talk about that when the books come out. 2 universes, actually.
2 universes, the Blood Witches and Evolution.
Yep. But I have something short and sweet. Well, there's nothing sweet about it. I sent you some pictures just a few minutes ago.
Yes.
And they are in order. And I don't remember most of the names. Well, the first 2 names. I know the actresses. There we go. This is an image taken from, and I'm sure many of you have seen it, and if you could remember this character's name in American Horror Story Coven, set in New Orleans, she is a figure of history. And like I said, I can't remember her name, and I can't see the chat at the moment. My eyes aren't really doing me very many favors. But she was an actual, the fun thing about this coven is they based a lot of the story on real people. I'm going to touch a little bit on her, a little bit on another one, but a lot on the last one that I'm going to show you. And this lady was a socialite. She did have a lot of slaves, and she fooled a lot of people, and she did a lot of horrible things. And eventually the authorities came in and said, no, we're going to take them away. Well, this lady was so conniving that she had family members under false names go and buy those people back, the ones that thought they had gotten away. And when eventually, that's the one, LaLaurie, when eventually her house caught fire, and in the process of rescuing the people that were in there, they found a house of horrors. And it is estimated that this woman was one of the greatest serial killers that the U.S. has ever known, and the first woman serial killer in the United States.
You've got a super chat from Mexican Iron Man.
Hey, the old Mexican Iron Man.
For $14.99, he says, hail the return of the great team of Loki and Adega. We love you, Adega. We need you, and you're vital to this entire creative movement, as well as teaching us that which we would not find or understand.
Oh, I don't know about that. The voice. There's lots of good voices out there, but thank you. I appreciate that. But no, this lady was a horrible person, and she did about everything that the show said. Except, of course, she wasn't blessed with eternal life. She eventually did die. But the house that she lived in is still there, and they consider it one of the most haunted places in all of New Orleans. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next picture, and someone will have to remember this lady for us.
For whatever reason, they did these backwards. So we're going backwards.
This is actually the one that I wanted, though. I mean, you're doing it in the right order, so it's fine. Flipped or not, it doesn't matter. This lady, I don't know why Bubo keeps coming to my mind. She was free back in the time, contemporary with Daphne, pretty close to the same era. And she was born free, stayed free, but she was a slave owner as well. And she had quite a few. And she wasn't known to be very nice, but she was a voodoo priestess and did some strange things as well. I forget most of her story, but...
Marie Laveau.
Okay, I was thinking Buvo. It was Luvo. Okay. Thank you, Purple. You're an angel. But it was just another dark figure, and a lot of people that are making excuses for some of the practices of voodoo. Some people think that it was a harmless religion, and in many cases it is, but in many cases it is not. So depending on the people that you, or the original text that you can find on this person, she's not necessarily a nice person at all. But again, that American Horror Story Coven was based on real people. She was one of them. Now I want you to see the picture of a more recent guy. The fun one. I should have found higher quality pictures for you.
No, it's cool. You just zoom in.
Now, there is no name for this one other than the Axe Man, and he has a bloody axe. The closest thing that they could ever find, and it was not validated because they couldn't get enough information, was a Joseph Morphia, but they're not sure. What happened was back in May 1918, there was a couple, and for some reason during the night, they ended up dead, being bludgeoned to death, and their own axe, bloody axe, was left on the property with the back door jimmied open, and no one knew what was going on. This continued again, over and over the next year. There was eventually, this isn't the last one, of course it wasn't the first. Some say this even went on 7 years before this first event, but we don't know for sure. A man by the name of Charles, best I can understand, because this was pretty much all done in the Italian sector of New Orleans. Cortamaglia, Charles, his wife was named Rosie, and they had a baby named Mary. And one night, the Axe Man came to visit. He had hit the child, killing it instantly, and hit the husband and the wife in the head and left. The wife came to the door screaming. The neighbors came, found her bloodied, her husband unconscious in a pool of blood, and the baby dead. Both the wife and the husband recovered. The wife accused their neighbors across the street. There was an elderly gentleman who was physically incapable of doing anything, and his son, who was a 6 foot some odd giant who couldn't have fit through the door that this lady was saying that she was, or that he had done. And just on her fingering or her testimony alone, that put both of those gentlemen on death row. The husband divorced his wife, the whole time saying that wasn't the guy, that wasn't the guy. Eventually she recanted and said she was just jealous. It lends credence to some of our laws nowadays to where we should not believe people's testimony alone. There needs to be evidence. because 2 innocent men almost died. This man went on, the Axeman, to kill. Eventually, he wrote a letter. I am going to read both letters to you. The letter that he sent, well, this is pretty much self-explanatory. This is the arrogance of this man. My famous letter came about just a short while after these attacks. I stated that I was a supernatural demon from the hottest of hell, and that I admired jazz music and would strike again on March 19th, 1919. I stated that whoever was playing jazz music in their home at the time I was to pass the night would be safe. If someone were to happen to slip up, however, they would face my punishment, which would be getting the axe. It is quite amusing how they made connection between me and Jack the Ripper, who had a strong reign of terror in London in the late 1800s, and Mr. Jekyll and Hyde personality. Both mine and Jack the Ripper's cases were unsolved, with the police and everyone else in complete bewilderment. The letter I had sent out to both the Times Post, I can't read the name, Poxian, and the New Orleans Police Department reads, Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortals, they have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest of hell. I am what you Orleans and you foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know who they shall be. I shall leave no other clues except my bloody axe, besmeared with the blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to not only amuse me, but not only amuse me, but his satanic majesty, Francis Joseph, etc. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it were better they were never born than to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't need to think there is any need of such a warning, for I feel sure the police will always dodge me as they have in the past. They are wise and know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleanians think of me as a most horrible murderer, which I am. But I could be worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time on next Tuesday night, I'm going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I'm going to make a little proposition to your people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well, so much the better. One thing is certain, And that is the same that some of you people who do not jazz it up on Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and it is about time I leave your earthly home, I will cease my disclosure, hoping that thou wilt publish this, that may go well with thee. I have been, am, and will be the worst spirit that has ever existed within fact or in realm of fantasy. The Axeman. All right, next picture, please. This here is a overlay of the city of the different attack places. You could see 16 different attacks, but that doesn't mean there were 16 different victims. He often got them in multiplicities, families, like in the first instance. Some survived, some didn't. And some were quite horrific. Of course, being bludgeoned to death is never pretty. It's never not horrific. But the sad part about it is, this self-proclaimed demon, Hellspawn, was never caught, never identified, and never brought to justice. Hence rides the tale of the Axeman, and songs have been written about him, and stories continue to go. That once upon a time in New Orleans, an actual demon lived and hunted there. All right, there you go. Did we lose Loki?
Thank you. No, my mic was muted.
Oh.
Thank you. That is some creepy shit. The Axeman. I'd never heard of the Axeman before. I know
Real
about
dude.
voodoo. I knew the other stories, but I didn't know about the Axeman.
Real dude.
All right. Well, I have a story for you guys tonight.
Looking forward to this.
I will give the author credit at the end. So here we go, guys. Has your hair ever stood up on the back of your neck? Have you ever been walking and swore someone was behind you? I always had these little feelings. Sometimes when I passed someone in the store, or when I was driving down the road, it would be like a shiver down my spine. I could never explain it, why it happened, what it meant, what caused it, till the day I could. My name's Vincent. I had just finished my first year of college when it happened. I was on a long drive home, 12 hours in the car with the AC/DC and the windows down. I had another 6 to go when I pulled into a little all-night dive. I never liked places like this, but I didn't have a lot of choices in the middle of the night. It was a hole in the wall, but a warm meal pulled me in. Or maybe it was something else. I didn't know then what I know now. Few people seemed to have the same idea I did. A few truckers sat at the front counter. Family of 3 sat in the far corner. I took a seat at the front next to the truckers and grabbed a menu. Eggs, scrambled, with some bacon and an English muffin. While I kept looking at the menu, though, when I already knew what I wanted, I had no idea. It just seemed the normal thing to do. "What do you want, guy?" said the robust waitress from behind the counter. Closed the menu, gave her my order, and took the opportunity to hit the bathroom before my food was ready. It was when I was in the stall that it happened. That moment, that feeling, the spiders crawling up my neck. I hated it. Like that thing that tortured you your whole life, yet you can't explain why. One of the stall doors opened, and one of the truckers from the front counter came out. He didn't bother flushing. He didn't bother washing his hands. Just walked right back out. I never got that. I'd wondered time and time again if it was something with people, or if it was just me that had this feeling. Did it have to do with the trucker, or was I just imagining it? At the time, I was honestly too tired to tell. I just wanted a warm meal. I flushed, washed my hands, and went to the back to the counter thinking about those eggs. By the time my food got there, I just scooped up my eggs on my muffin, popped the bacon on top, and proceeded to eat my sandwich. I was halfway done when I heard screaming. The mother of the family that had been in the corner booth came out of the restroom calling for her daughter. Her husband darted into the women's restroom calling her name. Abby! Abby! Abigail! Abigail! The mother asked the waitress if she had seen her daughter come out of the restroom. Waitress just smacked her gum with that dumb look on her face like she suddenly didn't understand English. Have you seen my little girl? She just went into the restroom. Waitress shook her head and replied no. I didn't know what compelled me to get up, but I did. Walking right into the women's restroom. It was cold, like I walked into a freezer. The girl's father was checking stalls when he noticed me. Did you see her? Did you see her come out? I shook my head no, and he was back to calling her name and double-checking the stalls. That feeling I told you about, it swirled like a whirlpool in that room. Like it was going to swallow me alive. I was going to be sick. It felt like the entire world was going to spin off its axis. The mother was screaming on her cell phone for the police. The truckers were gone, and she was hysterical that one of them must have taken her. An hour later, the police had questioned all of us, had roadblocks set up, and an Amber Alert had gone out statewide. I don't know how I knew, not at first, but I knew they weren't going to find her. She was still here. I couldn't have told you how I knew, but I knew it had something to do with that damn bathroom. I made my way from the front counter back to it like it was pulling me, taunting me. It was those same spiders crawling up my spine. It was cold, maybe colder than before, but I could almost see something, a mirage or a bog, something dark. I couldn't trust my eyes, so I closed them and walked forward. It's hard to explain. It was like being in a storm, then walking into the eye. When I opened my eyes and saw what I felt when those things crawled up my neck, I couldn't begin to tell you the terror I felt. How do I even explain it? A world of black, of tar, of rot, surrounded by every nightmare you've ever had, every bad dream that's ever woken you up in the middle of the night. The walls in the bathroom were alive. They moved. They moved because of the ones trapped inside them. What I can only describe as mouths and faces and hands. I say ones because whatever they weren't like you or me. They were twisted. Twisted, deformed things. If I had known what waited, maybe I wouldn't have walked back into that damn restroom. But I had. And I knew she was there. Abigail! Red lightning cascaded overhead like a fire in the sky. The sounds of the things in the walls were terrifying. I felt like a compass was pulling me forward. I felt her. I walked slowly through a space where the stalls used to be. The trees outside were black, dead. Everything looked dead. I kept walking. Hands protruded out of the ground, trying to grab something, anything, like they were searching for something to drag into the ground with them. Twisted and deformed hands that made the same sounds as the ones in the walls. I came upon a pit in the ground filled with them. All of them moving, all of them grabbing at each other. If I had ever imagined seeing this, being here, I would have never closed my eyes. Then I heard her. Heard someone screaming for help. I ran faster than I ever had. She was on the ground being pulled by the same types of hands I had seen before, but it wasn't all. It was the trees. The trees were moving. They bled a dark ooze that went down into the ground. Blood and pus oozed down them, and they had mouths. Mouths with teeth and claws. I slid next to the girl and took her in my arms. She was covered in the same ooze and pus and blood from the trees. She was screaming when I told her not to look. Don't look, I yelled as I ran. Horror of where I was, what I was running towards, didn't enter my mind until I came back to the pit. The bodies were gone, and in its place was a maw of teeth and long growths that reached out for us. The sound it made, I'll never forget it. It roared like some kind of monster from the darkest reaches of your mind. The girl screamed, and I told her not to look. I tried to run, but it had us. It gripped us in its protrusions. It held us over its mouth and roared in delight. It was deafening to the point of madness. I shouted at her to close her eyes, and as I closed mine, the roar was reaching its crescendo. We were going to be its meal. Then we were suddenly free. I don't recall how it happened. I don't recall how we came back, but the next thing I knew, I had a mother and a father thanking me for finding their little girl. I sat in the ambulance with her as the EMTs checked her out. I told her my name was Vincent, and she said hers was Abigail. Then it dawned on me. This was that feeling, that place. That dark and twisted place was why I had that feeling. The spiders crawling up my neck. I was just about to leave when an officer walked up to the ambulance, and that's when I had my second shock of the night. His face, like the ones in the walls. His hands, like the ones in the ground. His skin, like the trees. He gave a short huff, and as I stared at him, then he walked away. I looked back at Abigail. She had her blanket the EMTs gave her raised high almost over her face. Abigail told me, I see it too.
Oh, there we go.
Well, thank you guys. That was mine. I was up one night last week. I had a horrible ear infection. I could not sleep, and I just decided to write something. And I hope you guys liked it.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I sent that to Adega at like 2:00 in the morning. He was like, dude, you must have been half asleep because half this shit is half this shit is spelled wrong. I'm like, damn. So I went over it right before we did the show and changed a couple of things and added a little bit and did some correction on it. It was either that or my phone. I think my spell check was screwing with me too. I hate that.
That ought to learn you.
That's the first time I've ever written anything on my phone. So Adega's always talked about that. He'll just have his phone or his iPad or whatever, and just pull it out and it'll be wherever and just start writing. So
you gotta do it when you get the ideas, otherwise you lose it.
So thank you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here and hanging out. And we are going to tomorrow, guys. We are going to be talking about the best of Firefly, best episodes of Firefly. Can't wait. It's going to be Dave, Bob, and Purple, and we might have a guest. Hopefully, we will have a guest show up tomorrow who has just seen Firefly for the very first time.
Oh my word!
Yeah. So, and you wouldn't believe who it is either. You wouldn't believe who it is. So when I invited him, he was like, "Well, I've never seen it, Loki," and I'm like, "No." So and now he's like, "Well, now I can see why people were pissed. There was only one season." Oh shit! So guys, take care. We'll be back tomorrow. Big thank you to Adega. Thank you all in chat for being here. Thank you for the super chat, Mexican Iron Man. You rock, brother. Everyone take care. Have a great one. And we will see you guys next week.
Good night, all.
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.